the Steam Frame VR headset versus the good old Valve Index. What are the differences and which one is the best? Let's dive right into it. And what better way to start off this comparison than with what comes inside the box? Now, the original Valve Index kit comes in this massive package that next to your headset and controllers will also have the lighthouses included in here, and those will be needed for the tracking of your device. Now, if we dig deeper, then it even has a whole second layer in the box, where you will find the accessories to set up these lighthouses, as well as your USB-C charging cables. While on the other hand, the Steam Frame comes in a much smaller package that just contains the headset unit and controllers, as well as their new Wi-Fi 6E dongle for your wireless PCVR gaming. But more on that one later, because let's first talk about the hardware design itself, since this is also where we can directly feel a big difference already, thanks to the Valve Index weighing in at a total of 809 grams. And that is nearly double that of the Steam Frame, which comes in at 435 grams instead. Now, of course, do keep in mind that the bulk of the Index does partially come from that Elite-style head strap, while the Steam Frame just has that basic soft material band that houses the battery in the back of it to act as a counterweight. Although, the Index head strap does make it sit a bit more comfortably around your head, with it also giving you an easier way to adjust it using the back dial or the included top strap. And that one is sadly still missing on the Steam Frame. But when we move back to the front of the device, then we can quickly find the two built-in cameras here on the bottom. Now on the Index, these are not used for the tracking, but only for its color pass-through mode. And to translate this real quick, is that this will let you see your surroundings while you still have your headset on. But surprisingly though, is that while the Steam Frame has 4 built-in cameras on the front, which also tracks your controllers and headset at the same time, they are actually monochrome instead, meaning that your pass-through from the start will always be in black and white. But when we're talking about the design of these devices, we should also take a look at the controllers. Now here, the Valve Index has their iconic knuckle versions, which you can recognize by the special strap that goes around your hand. And it is exactly this one that makes it possible for you to completely let go of them without them falling down at all. And thanks to this mechanism, as well as in combination with their built-in sensors, you can basically get full hand tracking without needing any fancy gloves. And in contrast, the Steam Frame controllers look much more similar like those from the Quest 3. Although, their main difference is that they changed up quite a lot in their layout. Since here, you will now see that all the face buttons are moved to the right hand side, while the left controller got a new additional D-pad added to it. And that makes it nearly identical to any standard controller that you have laying at home. And while you might directly notice that these don't include any of those nice straps like we had beforehand, Valve did mention that they will be releasing their knuckle strap designs in the future in their so-called separate comfort package. But moving on, we also have to talk about the Index lighthouses. Now these two included square boxes will have to be set up somewhere in your room to even make it possible for you to track both your headset and controllers. And while the result actually does give you some highly accurate positioning in VR, the setup itself can be quite a hassle if you want to take your headset on the go. While the Steam Frame will simply use the previously mentioned cameras for inside-out tracking, meaning that you won't need any of those lighthouses with them at all. But let's take a bit of a closer look at the headsets itself, and more specifically to the hardware specs. And starting off with probably the most important one, which is of course the screen. Now the Valve Index has an LCD panel with a base resolution of 1440 by 1600 pixels per eye, which in comparison makes it on par with something like the original Oculus Quest. And the Steam Frame, while having a similar LCD panel, has a higher resolution of 2160 by another 2160 pixels per eye instead. And that makes this nearly identical to that what we have on the Meta Quest 3. Either way though, both have the possibility to push their refresh rates all the way up to 144 Hz. And like with any VR headset, with this screen comes also the field of view. Now here, the Index has about 108 degrees of FOV, while the Steam Frame has just a very slight increase to a 110 degree instead. And next to that, the Index uses the older Fresnel lenses, while the Steam Frame has the newer Pancake optics. And this is a significant upgrade overall, since the Pancake versions will give you a much bigger sweet spot and less God rays while you're gaming. However, another big plus for the Steam Frame here is that it also has 2 inward-facing cameras that can be used for things like eye tracking or foveated streaming, which basically means that the headset will make your screen look the sharpest, but only in the places that you're looking at. And this tech is sadly not available at all in the Valve Index. But by far, the biggest difference of all is that the Index is a PC VR headset that needs to be tethered physically to your gaming PC, while the Steam Frame is technically a standalone headset that doesn't require a PC at all unless you want to. Now this is of course possible thanks to its built-in battery, as well as the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip that powers the device. which also directly gets us to the next point, and maybe the most important part of all, which is the games. Because since the Index is a true PC VR headset, you will mostly be playing the Steam VR library from top to bottom. Although, this also has its downsides. Because even though some of the best VR games of all time can be found on Steam, there are also a bunch of standalone exclusives from, for example, Meta, that you sadly won't find here at all. But besides that, as long as your PC can handle it, you should have more than enough things to choose from, even when it's just from within Steam. Now, the Steam Frame, on the other hand, does have some more potential here. Because besides being able to play those PC VR games wirelessly with that Wi-Fi 6E dongle, it also has the possibility to play Steam VR games natively. So for example, you could just download a game like Boneworks onto your headset and play it completely from start to finish, whenever and wherever you want. Of course, keep in mind that for this to be possible, developers will probably have to turn down some graphics so that it can keep running smoothly. But either way, being able to play PC VR titles without needing any external power source for its computing is absolutely insane. And regarding that, Valve also showed off that they will show a Steam Frame verified icon next to their games so that you will directly know if you can play them in standalone or not. And that is kind of similar to how they have been doing it with their other devices too. But the big extra here that many people forget is that while the Index just simply runs a version of your computer's Steam VR, the Steam Frame has Steam OS as its operating system. So besides having a super nice UI, it will also open up a bunch of options for mods and emulation that just aren't possible on the Index. Besides that, Valve also put a big focus on flat screen gaming here, which thanks to their compatibility layer, should let you play your entire 2D catalog from day one on your headset too. Now of course, when comparing these headsets, we shouldn't forget that the Index did come out all the way back in 2019, while the Steam Frame arrives nearly 7 years later in 2026. And while the price of the full Index kit is still at a whopping $1,000, we do know at least that the Steam Frame is going to be a bunch cheaper than that. But that also gets us directly to the final conclusion. Now, the Valve Index and the Steam Frame are both very different headsets that each have their own pros and cons. Because where on one side, the Valve Index is a full-on PC VR headset with some highly accurate tracking as well as with some fantastic controllers, the Steam Frame has a big increase in resolution and clarity, but also making it possible for the first time to play Steam VR games natively on it. And even though it might lack those color pass-through cameras, the advanced built-in Snapdragon chipset and its lightweight more than make up for it. So in the end, while the Index surprisingly manages to keep up, even after all these years, I think that for most people right now, the Steam Frame will definitely be the best option. However, that is not all, because if you want to see how the Steam Frame holds up to the more budget-friendly Meta Quest 3, then click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.